All right, how's it going, everyone? Gamma Fighter here, coming at you with another Sylvaneth video. And my Gossiped Gals and Leafy Lads, we are going to be taking a look at comparing Sylvaneth units to similar units with similar roles in other factions. But before we jump into it, I just wanted to say I haven't been uploading too much lately. As much as I love talking about Sylvaneth, I love painting Sylvaneth more, and I've been painting a lot. I painted a whole Tree Lord, and I'm working on an Arch Revenant. Even though I don't plan to use it in my army, I just like the model. But that's what I've been up to lately. The other thing is that this took quite a long time. So I put in a lot of effort into putting this data into the spreadsheets, and I hope you guys appreciate that. But that's why I've kind of been working on this for a couple of weeks, and it's kind of been distracting me from just recording videos because I wanted to get this done. So we'll take a look at the all the work I put into it and hope you guys appreciate it. So now getting into the main topic, I do understand that when we're looking at different factions, it doesn't necessarily make perfect sense. It's not always a good comparison to compare the different units to each other in different factions because there's different contexts. I don't know every faction. I don't know every unit intimately. I don't know the leaders, the heroes that go with these different units. I don't know if some of these, I'm sure, are not used very often. I think the man-eater ogres aren't used very often. I think I have the Fellwater Troggoths. Yeah, I don't know why it says rock gut there, but the Fellwater Troggoths, I don't think people use them that much. I think it's the rock gut Troggoths. So it's not a perfect comparison. But I think there is use for it because we do understand what do we get, what's our advantage, what's our bonus, what do our heroes do for us, so we can kind of see where we fit in the mass of just the numbers of the stats, in durability, just the meat of everybody else. And then we can kind of compare ourselves in that way, agnostic of these other things. I know some of these are going to be a little bit off, and it's not perfect, but I think it still is helpful. So with that, let's go right into starting with the elite infantry, our Kurnoth hunters with scythes and swords. If you haven't seen this spreadsheet, this is the same spreadsheet that I used in the Sylvaneth numbers deep dive. You want to check out that video first, probably. Um, and this spreadsheet does the calculation for me. I just put in the numbers, and then it calculates out the things like efficiency, the effective health, when you take into account the save, effectively multiplying the health, the base health of the units. That the spreadsheet does all the work for that. So when we're looking at, and then yeah, like a 7-up save on the ward means that you don't have a ward save because it's the same calculation. So um, the other thing is there's stuff like, I know the Chaos Chosen can be marked Nurgle and then they can be -1 to be hit. I just didn't take that into account here. And that's because it's impossible to calculate it in the spreadsheet. So the Chaos Chosen are going to be a bit tankier. So there's some stuff like that that's not getting taken into account. So first off, we're going to start with our Kurnoth Hunters. If we look at just the raw unit health, they're right in this big fat middle of 15. There's a lot of units that fall in that area. For this one, I was kind of aiming for the around 200 point cost infantry units. Generally, I preferred if they were 3 models per unit. For some reason, I put the blood letters in here. Like I said, this took me a couple weeks, so I don't know what I was thinking every single time. I think like the blood letters can come back to life and stuff like that. So, it's not a perfect comparison, um, but yeah, so the Kurnoth hunters are right here, sort of in the upper middle area. If we look at the efficiency, they're not super efficient. The scythes are right in the middle there, and the swords are towards the bottom of the middle. So not super great. If we look at effective health, once again, they're kind of in the middle here, and in the bottom half. And then if we look at efficiency for the effective health, same thing. They're pretty much in the bottom middle, or the bottom of the middle. Now, if we turn the ward save on, so this is when they're standing on an objective, they get a 6-up ward save, and they give a 6-up ward save to any allies that are standing on the same objective. And that really helps them out quite a bit. So if we sort by the effective health, okay, they're still sort of in the middle, but they're in like the middle of the middle. And then if we look at the efficiency, quite a bit better than they were before. So Kurnoth Size going up to 6th place and the Kurnoth Swords going up to 9th place. I've got the ranking here on the side so you can see at a glance where they're ending up. I'll have the same thing on the damage chart. So overall, the Kurnoth Hunters compared to the other sort of elite infantry, they're sort of middling, sort of lower end of middle. And you turn on the wards and they end up a little stronger, but still sort of in the middle. So if that's another reason I'm doing this is because I wanted to challenge my expectations. So when I was reading the rules and I looked at our units, I kind of thought like, hey, these guys are probably pretty tanky. They're probably pretty durable compared to other factions. And that would synergize really well with the healing that we get from our faction abilities. And so I'm going to expect that they're probably not going to do quite as much damage, but most of our units are going to be on the more durable side compared to others in the same category. And we see here that they're right around average, which is really interesting because they have 5 health, which seems like a lot, but there's other stuff that has 5 health. They only have a 4 up save, whereas there's other stuff that comes with a 3 up save. So yeah, challenging the expectations. So if we go to the damage chart, we can do another analysis here. And, going forward, our comparison on the durability should be quicker because I won't quite have to explain as much. Same thing here. I'm going to spend a little bit more time introducing some of these concepts. And then on the following ones, I won't take as long for shooting and for cavalry. So if you haven't seen this, this is also from my numbers deep dive when I went and analyzed the Sylvaneth faction units compared to each other. And so on here, the chart just does all the calculations. I put in the number of models, the number of attacks. It calculates total attack, the to hit roll to the wound roll. Oh, I know what's going on here. I usually hide the average number of hits, average number of wounds. Usually hide that just to make it cleaner. We've got it comes out with our average base damage. Put the rend in there. It calculates the mortals, mortal damage for like crit mortals, that type of thing. And then on the right side of the chart, we've got the damage that you would expect on average against a 1-up save, a 2-up save, a 3-up save, 4-up save, 5-up save, and a 6-up save. And then when I have the points here to the right, the column to the right of the save is going to be the corresponding efficiency. So the number of points that the model costs or the unit costs divided by the average damage that you would expect at that save, the armor save for the target. And so for the damage column, you want a higher number. For the points or the efficiency column, you want a lower number, more efficiency. Then I've got the abilities over here on the far right. Not a ton of these come into super effect when it comes to like how much damage they're necessarily doing. Probably the biggest one's going to be stuff like the Chaos Chosen getting to fight twice. The Annihilator Hammers, they've got a little bit more damage, chip damage from Deep Strike, that type of stuff. So not super relevant here. Stuff like, yeah, the Rock Gut, they can heal D3 every turn, which is pretty good. But yeah, and then for anything when there's like other options, the Croxagores have a different weapon profile. Then I have those at the bottom here. Rock Guts have they throw a boulder. I include that as well. Although, like stuff like the boulder's not always going to come into play. Rat Ogres might have shoot in combat, but you're not going to be able to shoot every turn. You'll usually won't be shooting on your opponent's turn, usually. So yeah, it's not a perfect science, but I think it's the best that we can do, if I do say so myself. So we can take a look here. These ones I have highlighted in red, looking at their damage, it seems like pretty low. And I think it's because they have a different role. Like the Immortus Guard are a bodyguard unit. They have a bodyguard ability. So I think they're not really meant to do that much damage anyway. So they're probably not actually a good comparison. So there we are though. Now let's take a look at the total damage against a 6-up save. Kurnoth Size and the Great Swords are here at 5 and 6. Let me just see too, because there's some things here, we've got notes and we've got highlights, again, before we get into it. I gave the Chaos Chosen the Corn mark. I do know Slaves to Darkness pretty well, and so when something is marked Corn, then when they charge, they get +1 to their attacks characteristic. I may check with that taken away because it is a pretty big impact there. And then yeah, the rat ogres when they have an ability where they can take 1 damage on the model on the unit, and then they can increase their attacks characteristic by 1. The Croxagore have +1 damage against when they're targeting units that have 10 or more models. And then there's some stuff here like, yeah, the Kurnoths have impact hits. I didn't include them here, but we will add them in to see how they stack up. And then like, yeah, the Fellwater Troggoth, they have a shooting attack, and then when that hits, it gives the enemy -1 to save, which is effectively 1 additional save. I didn't include that here. They would be up to 2, but just some things to keep in mind. Again, it's not a perfect science. You have to kind of pick and choose how you do these things. So um, against a 6-up save, the Chaos Chosen do incredibly well. They are, yeah, them and the Ogre Gluttons are like quite far above the 3rd place here. And then the Rat Ogres are doing quite well. And the Size and the Greatswords are just coming in a bit behind the Rat Ogres. Again, this doesn't include their impact hits. And yeah, I don't want to always go into such detail and analysis because of the sake of time and because not a ton will change, but just kind of a good idea to keep an eye on these top 4 here and see how they continue to compare to the Kurnoth hunters. All right, so against a 5-up, we're in 5th place and 6th place again. Against a 4-up, 6th and 7th place. Against a 3-up, the Greatswords pull ahead a little bit, but then the Kurnoth scythes drop off by quite a lot. So 5th and 9th place there. Against a 2-up, we're looking at 3rd and 11th. And then against a 1-up, the swords are in 2nd place. The scythes are in 11th place. So the Greatswords have that crit mortal attack with a pretty good volume, which is going to make them much better against these better saves compared to other units. So, and then we can take a look at efficiency as well. So here the Gluttons are super efficient. We're at 7th place and 10th place. The Greatswords are quite a bit more expensive. Well, they're 10% more expensive than the Scythes, so they suffer pretty hard in the efficiency, at least against a 6-up save. Against a 5-up, we're looking at 7th and 11th place. Against a 4-up save, the Greatswords are doing better now. They're in 9th against the Scythes being in 11th place, which is pretty bad. And against a 3-up save, the Greatswords are at in 7th place. The Scythes are in 12th place, and they're only above the red guys. So the ones where I said like maybe I shouldn't have included them because they're underperforming pretty hard. So that's a pretty bad sign. I just forgot which one we did, so I'm gonna do 3-up again. Okay, that's what I thought. I thought it was 3-up. Okay, against the 2-up, the Greatswords are in 4th. Kronos are still in, or the Scythes are still in 12th, and then against a 1-up save, the Greatswords are in 3rd place, and the Scythes are in 13th place, which is really pretty bad in terms of efficiency. So they start out against a 6-up save. They're sort of in the middle kind of an area. 5-up save, kind of the same thing. But the Scythes drop off like really hard once you get to a 3-up. 4-up and 3-up, they're doing pretty bad, whereas that's where the Greatswords really start to shine. All right, now I do want to take another look with the impact hits. So on average, they will get 2 mortal damage from their impact hits. The Greatswords get the impact hits when they charge, and then the Scythes get the impact hits when they are charged. It says about 4 on average. That's because I copied it from the Sylvaneth spreadsheet where I was comparing a reinforced unit. But here, none of these are reinforced, so so the average is going to be 2. And then again, let's actually nerf the chosen a bit. Let's say they didn't charge or they're not corn marked. And although I think probably you should corn mark them. And we'll take a look at the numbers again really quick. So here, the Kurnoths are doing much better, and the chosen are just barely above them again on the 6-up save. So top 5 for the Kurnoths is really good. And against a 5-up save, same thing. They just switch places. Against a 4-up, same thing. Against a 3-up, the great swords are really doing well, third place. Against a 2-up, the great swords are the best. Of course, the chosen did lose that one attack on their characteristics, so maybe they would be doing better if we kept them as corn. And then a 1-up, the great swords are the best. So that's really, really impressive. And it just goes to show how important the impact hits are. When we look at efficiency, same kind of a story here. The sides are doing really well. Great swords they kind of come to meet each other at 4th and 5th place, and then the great swords just skyrocket to the top here. Really good. So really impressed with the performance of the Kurnoth Hunters. It does show, like I said, the impact hits are really important. Didn't really see impact hits on other units, so it is something that's going to be unique to them. And that really helps out. So you either really want to be charging with your great swords or getting charged by this or when with the sides. So yeah, otherwise they're sort of in the middle and sort of towards the bottom of the middle. Not terrible, but not that great. And then yeah, the other thing I saw was that the sides really do drop off really hard against the better armor saves. So with these things in mind, really impressed with the great swords and doing quite well, pretty middling on the durability, but when it comes to damage, they do perform quite well, especially if you get their impact hits to work. Now, what do we have on top of that? We actually have quite a bit. We've got the ward save, although I did talk about that in the durability section when they're on an objective. Well, I guess it's not quite a bit. The other thing they have is they can teleport with Walk the Hidden Paths. They have the healing from our faction traits, which is pretty good. Teleporting and then immediately charging is not as reliable in this edition, but as far as like overall positioning across the battlefield, it is important to consider. And then the scythes have anti-charge rend 1. So if you get charged, in addition to the on average 2 mortals for a unreinforced unit, you're also going to get +1 rend, which really would help out their damage. As we saw, they dropped off pretty considerably once the armor saves got really good, starting at like 3-up. But if you get charged, then you'd be hitting as though they had a 4-up save with the 1 rend. It would be so if you get charged by a unit that has a 3-up save, say something like the Chaos Chosen or the Chaos Warriors or something, you would have your 1 rend would go to 2 rend. So it would be the same as this chart with the looking at the 4-up save, even though they do have a 3-up save. Hope you were able to follow that. That's pretty good, pretty impactful, and it would really help them to sustain and stay, comparing the Kurnoth size on the 4-up against the other things on the 3-up save. Of course, the sides are going to do really well. So that's pretty much it for the elite infantry. Let's move on to take a look at the cavalry. All right, so for the cavalry, there's not much here. Just talk about the Chaos Knights and the Varangard can also be marked Nurgle, which means they're -1 to be wounded. The Venari Dawn Riders, they have an ability to get -1 to be hit as well. So that really helps out their durability. That's a calculation that cannot be shown in this spreadsheet. It depends on what your opponent's attack to hit roll and to wound roll are. So I also went over that in the deep dive into the Sylvaneth if you want a more detailed explanation of how that works. But we take a look at the overall health. Chaos Knights are absolutely killing it. They are like 30% more than the next highest one. They're pretty expensive, but hey ho, it's what you have to do. In terms of efficiency, all right, so the Chaos Knights are 3rd place. They're not 1st place anymore, but still doing pretty good. But anyways, this is a video about Sylvaneth. Like I said, I also follow the Slaves to Darkness, but it's just like the Chaos Knights and the Vanguard are like just doing so well right now that's why I was kind of paying attention to them. But yes, the Bug Riders were in this big fat middle again, 15 health, with the efficiency doing pretty well. The sort of the top of the middle, the middle of the middle. kind of area here. We're looking at 18 different units here. So we're at 6 and 8. So that's doing pretty good. In terms of effective health, we shift down to the bottom of the middle. Once again, 11th and 12th place. And then in terms of efficiency, still down there in the bottom of the middle. So not the absolute worst, but really not that great. This is another one that surprised me. I really was expecting the bug riders would be sort of on the more durable side, but maybe a little bit less damage. Um, and I think that's all really to look at here in the durability section. Nothing much else worth noting. Yeah. Okay, going into the damage. Here, one thing that's important on the cavalry chart is that I assumed that they're charging for all the units. So every bonus that they get for charging, I've included it here. A lot of them have +1 damage on the charge, which I've gone ahead and thrown in there because their role is to charge. So let's assume that they are charging. And I think that's a good way to even the playing field. Otherwise, there's some where their abilities would be shut off if they didn't charge, which could really impact their damage. So I think it was just a better way to do it. Another thing that's important to look at with these cavalry is their move speed. So this is their movement in inches. So there's a couple that can move 14. So we're looking at the eels, which can also fly, which is important. We're looking at the Paladors from Stormcast and the Dawn Riders from Lumineth with 14. That's a pretty big movement. Although 12 inches is not that much shorter than 14 inches, but something to keep in mind. Something interesting about all these other 12-inch move guys is that they all have fly, except I think the Blood Knights don't technically have fly, but they have an ability that lets them, yeah, pass through units during the move phase, which is pretty similar to fly. I know with fly we can do it during the charge phase, which is a really big deal. But yeah, so that's us here. We're right in 12 with the fly. So that's pretty good. Next down would be a 10-inch move. A lot of these can't fly, so we're better off than the Chaos Knights and the Vanguard for sure when it comes to our movability. The other thing is that cavalry units can often, and especially with us having a 5 health characteristic, can use the power through to do sort of a strike and fade type of an ability after all the fighting's been done. We can retreat by 12 inches with fly, which is a really, really powerful ability. So the flying really factors into that there, as well as 12 inches compared to like 10 inches makes us quite a bit more maneuverable than these 10-inch guys, although and not really that bad compared to the 14-inch move guys because these two can't fly, although the eels can fly as well. So all those things, something to take note of. A couple of these have impact hits where it's, roll D3 and on a 2-up you deal that much damage. Quite a few of them do. We do not. But the Revenant Seekers have crit mortals. And now as we're looking at this too, we're mostly going to focus on the Spite Rider Lancers because their main role is as a fast cavalry hammer. The Revenant Seekers have a support ability to give +3 rally dice when allies rally, and that is mainly the reason you're going to take them. They have crit mortals, which can help them do pretty decent damage against really, really good armor saves. And I say decent damage, I mean comparatively, like relative to other units that don't have crit mortals. But you still would not be bringing Revenant Seekers primarily as a hammer. If you want a fast cavalry hammer, the Spite Rider Lancers is the unit that you're going to be bringing. So yeah, with that, let's get into the damage analysis. So taking a look at total damage on a 6-up, this is pretty sad. We are really way down at the bottom. And taking a look at what we're above, once again, the Ishleyan Guard probably shouldn't be on here. They have like a defensive ability. They're really more of a defensive role. Blood Crushers, I don't know if anyone really uses these, but the Dreadblade Harrows, this is again like with the blood letters, I put them in there. I don't know what I was thinking, man. The Harrows have a teleport, so they're kind of like cavalry tree revenants that actually can fight. They don't do a ton of damage compared to other cavalry because there's only 2 models, but it's pretty good that if you can teleport and you can still fight pretty good. So that's their main strength. They're like tree revenants that don't just crumble the moment someone looks at them. And then plague drones, of course, they're Nurgle. They weren't that durable, if you remember from the durability check. They're more durable than us in terms of efficiency, but so they are, I think, more meant as a durable piece. They, yeah, so that's who we're up against. We're doing a little bit better than the Venari Dawn Riders. Now, I do know they have crit mortals and they have an ability that gives them crits on a 5-up. So they could be doing quite a bit more damage, and you probably would have them be doing that instead. Um, yeah, so that's not great. I don't really know anything about the Morbid Knights or the Morsar Guard or anything like that, but yeah, I'm not going to compare everything. We can just take a look at these ones that are doing really well and keep an eye on them. Like I said, the Vanguard and the Chaos Knights are just really strong in this edition, and Slaves of Darkness are kind of a boogeyman, mostly because of the Vanguard. Um, so something to keep an eye on is them. They're taking up 4 spots in the top 6 for just one faction, so that's pretty good representation. I did, for the sake of the cavalry units, I did show them with a corn mark and without the corn mark. I thought that was worthwhile just because they are kind of boogeymen right now. And then, yeah, the Blood Knights and the Fulminators are doing well. Blood Knights being Soulblight Grave Lord, I believe, and then the Fulminators being Stormcast Eternal, the Dracoths. Um, so yeah, some units to keep an eye on as we're looking through here. We'll keep going again a little bit quicker here for the rest of the damage. Against a 5-up, we're still down there at 13 and 16. Against a 4-up, we're in 15th place and 16th place. Not good. Against a 3-up, 15 and 17th. Against a 2-up, 15 and 17th. And against a 1-up, 15th and 18th. So the Revenant Seekers pulling ahead there of the Spite Riders, but still performing quite poorly against compared to other cavalry. Um, really disappointing here. I checked a couple times to make sure I didn't actually accidentally forget to give him like a +1 damage on the charge, and their mount as well gets +1 damage on the charge, but I did not forget. I'm pretty sure that this is accurate. You know, 10 attacks on 3s and 4s, rend 1 damage 2. It's just not good. Um, pretty disappointing. I was really surprised when I saw this, putting this video together. In terms of efficiency, now the Spite Rider Lancers are sort of on the cheaper side. There's a lot of 250 and 230 cost units here. The Vanguard, of course, 310. If we look at efficiency, Spite Rider Lancers jump to the middle. 11th place, Revenant Seekers still down there. Looking at a 5-up save, Spite Riders are at 12, and we're at 17 as well. And then against a 4-up save, it's 14 and 16th place. Against a 3-up save, 14th and 17th place. Against a 2-up, they swap. The Revenant Seekers are on top now. We're like 15th and 16th. And against a 1-up save, which is really, really ridiculous, save, like super good armor save there. Seekers are at 15th place and Lancers are 17th place. So we don't have something like impact hits that we can add in here to really help out the damage. It really is that bad. And I still like the Spite Rider Lancers. I'm just trying to deal with reality, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to accept, like, where are we really when it comes to damage? And the truth is that the Spite Rider Lancers are just not very good in damage compared to other cavalry. In terms of overall damage and as well as efficiency, just not very good. Now that's just in the numbers. Um, oh yeah, and it was true for the durability as well. On the low end of the middle, really not that great for durability as well as efficiency, and really on the lower end of damage. So that's just looking at the raw stats though. So um, what else do we have? Well, one thing that we do have is anti-cavalry. The Spite Rider Lancers, the mount or the units that are riding, the riders, that's what it's called. They have anti-cavalry Rend +1. That's a pretty, it can help. It can definitely help us, and I think it would make the difference against going against cavalry. Um, I didn't see very much anti-cavalry. I saw quite a bit of anti-infantry. I saw some anti-monster even. But yeah, I think Gore Gruntas was the only other anti-cavalry cavalry unit. And so if we go ahead and sort by raw damage against a 4-up save, Spire Rider Lancers would actually be at 10.5 damage. Uh, and that would put them up here in ninth place. Still nothing to brag about that much, but that's kind of the comparison you can make. Is that they would be doing one additional rend when going against cavalry units. Um, it would help out and bring you up to sort of middling damage, but I don't think it would do a ton to help. Um, I think the biggest thing, there's healing as well. The flying certainly helps, but there is quite a lot of flying in cavalry in the same category. I think the biggest thing for the Spite Rider Lancers is striking first on a 3-up. Um, that really, really can be impactful. And if you're not making use of it, then you are not getting the best use out of your Spite Rider Lancers. And you're falling behind compared to other cavalry units in terms of just winning the points back. So for me, I think that's a big impact. And it's to the point where I might even consider, instead of going with like a reinforced unit of Lancers, I might consider splitting them up so that one of them will probably get strike first at minimum. It's going to be pretty rare when both of them will not get strike first. But by splitting them up, you increase the chance of that strike first going off and then making use of multiple activations. Still not sure how wise that is, but it's something that you may want to consider. If you're only going in with the Spite Rider Lancers, though, and you don't have any other combats, then the strike first doesn't matter, in which case that's a lot of the value of the Spite Rider Lancers that you're not making use of. That's what I'm trying to say here. The other thing is seeing how poor they perform against other cavalry really does make me second guess. There's times where I will want to bring Spite Rider Lancers for their mobility over something like the Kurnoth Greatswords, but seeing how poorly they perform compared to other cavalry units really does make me question whether that's a good idea. Um, so yeah, again, I'm not trying to be too down on Spite Rider Lancers, just trying to deal with reality on reality's terms. Um, okay, moving on, let's take a look at our last category, which is shooting. And taking a look first here at durability. All right, so uh, we'll take a look at the total unit health. The Kurnoth bows are right there on top, tied for first place. Really wouldn't expect anything else. And then Gossamids are tied for second place. The truth is that most of these units are at 10. That's definitely the mode right there. And then there's a couple that are a bit weaker. Yeah, maybe not a perfect comparison. Some of these things are like Skaven, war machines and stuff like that. But I'm just trying to do my best to compare as best I can. I'm sure there's some that I missed. I didn't have, there's some Namarti something or other. I don't know why I didn't put those in. I was trying to go, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyways, yeah, if there's some shooting units that are really important that I missed, I could maybe redo this with the shooting units only. Um, okay, so looking at efficiency, the bows are pretty expensive, so they fall quite a bit in efficiency, but still not doing too bad, especially when you compare how our other, like the elite infantry, well, not the Kurnoths did okay, the cavalry, how the Bug Riders did in this category. The Kurnoths are still doing quite good here. Gossamids are really doing well as well because they're pretty cheap. So, and then if we look at the effective health, taking into account the save, and here I've got the ward save turned on. Let's go ahead and turn that off. Kronos are once again in first place for effective health. Gossamed archers fall quite a bit because they have a 5-up save, whereas some of their peers before have like a 4-up save. And then in terms of efficiency, the Kurnoth bows fall quite a bit as well, but still sort of in the middle there. If we turn on that ward save, then the efficiency jumps right up into third place. So Kurnoths are very strong in terms of durability, and that's kind of what you would expect, as opposed to something like some elves just standing there, or the Free Guild Fusiliers, just some dudes standing there. They got those big shields, but what are they going to do? So the Carnoths are really beefy, and they really perform in durability. Gossamed Archers, not so much, although they're kind of efficient because they cost like quite a few points. I don't know why I forgot to take out the other Gossamed Archers. Let's do that right now. Uh, so, anyways, yeah, I don't know what I don't know what was going on. That's not how you do that. You go ahead and do that right there. And then let's sort here once again. Here we go, looking at 14 units. So anyways, Gossamed Archers are doing all right. Pretty average, I'd say, in terms of durability. Take a look at the damage here. Oops. Uh, Once again, the movement and the range are really good, are really important here. I'm not going to sort it by comparing both of them together, but looking at the range here, the 18 is pretty much the best. And there's actually a pretty big drop off. There's just one unit that has a 15-inch range, and then it's all the way down to 12 inches, which is really interesting. There are just the War Machines from the Skaven and then the Jezzails from the Skaven that can outperform that. So range is pretty good, pretty impressive here. Not a lot to note here. There's stuff like the Bloodstalkers have crit 2 hits, and then if they don't move, then they get crits on 5s instead of on 6s. I got these showing again, the average columns here. And then, yeah, there's a couple things where if they don't move, then they get +1 to hit. So stuff like the Manskewer Bolt Boys and stuff, I gave it to them. So I don't know if that's necessarily representative. Uh, so here we go. Here we go. Yeah, let's take a look at the damage. The other thing is I didn't include their combat damage. So I will touch on that a little bit more. Just have the Grundstock extra weapons here. All right, so in terms of raw damage, it's not great. We have 19 units that we're looking at, and we're at 12 and 13, and the Carnoth bow is doing just a bit better. Although I guess it's over half a point of damage better than the Gossamed Archers. But yes, really towards the bottom, the top of the bottom, you could say the bottom of the middle here. And once again, on a 5 up, they're at 12 and 13 again. Against a 4 up, they're at 12 and 14. Against 3 up, they're at 11 and 14. Against a 2 up, they're at 12 and 13. And against a 1 up, 12 and 13. So a pretty disappointing showing for the Kurnoth bows. Not doing that much damage, especially when you compare and see that there's a lot of units that are under 150 points. So in terms of efficiency, it's going to be pretty bad. Gossamed Archers are also very low in the damage. They're below the Kurnoths, of course, but they also cost a lot less. They cost 80 points less. So we'll see how they compare in the efficiency. And kind of what I would expect here, the Gossamed Archers are sort of in the middle, but the Kurnoth bows are at the bottom at 16th place. For a 5 up save, we're at 13 and 15. For a 4 up save, we're at 12 and 16. For a 3 up save, we're at 12 and 15. 2 up save, we're at 12 and 15. In a 1 up save, we're at 12 and 15. So much like the Bug Riders, the damage is really quite disappointing in terms of overall damage as well as durability. Now, as we saw, the durability of the Kurnoths is really the best, pretty much the best of what we're looking at here. So there is that trade-off, and so yeah, let's take a look at what do we have on the Gossamed Archers, who performed just below average, I would say, overall. Well, they have shooting combat, which is okay. But I think the bigger thing, you really don't want them in combat, but I think the bigger thing is that they have the shoot or move after shooting, and they can move D6 after they shoot during the shooting phase. And that can be a pretty big deal, especially when we're looking at this 12-inch range. So if we take target like the Kurnoth Hunters as an example. Let's pretend this is the Kurnoths with scythes. Um, the Gossamed Archers can be 12 away, shoot at the Kurnoth Hunters, and then if they didn't have the D6 move after they shoot, then the next turn the Kurnoth Hunters could move forward 5 inches and they would have a 7-inch charge. 7-inch charge, you have about a 60% chance of making. It's not impossible. You don't want to bet your whole game on a 60% chance. I think it's 58% exactly. But it's you don't want to bet your whole game on it, but it's still doable. It's still makeable. There's a pretty good chance that your archers would get charged. But with this move, they go from a 7-inch charge to a minimum of an 8-inch charge, which is actually a pretty big deal since that's just the minimum. If they move 6 inches, then they'll be 18 inches away. The Kurnoths move 5 inches, and they're still 13 inches away. They cannot charge. They can't even make a charge with boxcars unless they have a Spite Swarm Hive giving them +1 to charge. And then they need boxcars on top of that. It's just not going to happen. So even rolling a 5, a 4, even a 3 against something with a low move characteristic like a 5 or a 4, that is huge. That is really impactful and makes them really effective as harassing units. Whereas something with a 12-inch range, something else with a 12-inch range, like the Fusiliers, um, they are they have a pretty good chance of getting charged. Oh, I did have the Namardi on here. I didn't have them on the durability chart. Yeah, I don't know how I missed that. Sorry, guys. Yeah, my mistake. It's just after a while, you just all you see is numbers. You know what I mean? Like I just could not keep my eyes straight. I work with spreadsheets all the time, so I'm used to it. But after a while, even the most seasoned veteran can get tired of it. So, anyways, moving on. Um, Something like the Namardi Reavers or the Fusiliers, they have a really good chance of getting charged after they shoot, whereas the Gossamed Archers can continue to move. Not only do they have a 12-inch shooting range, they have a 12-inch movement range with fly, which gives them huge effective range, actually, because they can move 12 inches and then shoot 12 inches. Gives them an effective range of 24 inches, and then they can move an additional 6 inches, D6 inches after that. That's really good. I think for stats wise, numbers wise, just being completely pretty much average, maybe a little bit below average. I think this movement and the D6 move after you shoot really, really makes up for that and makes them a quality unit for us to have on our roster. Now, the Kurnoth bows, on the other hand, they're quite a bit more expensive and they were still really down there below average in the damage. And that's pretty disappointing. Um, but what do we have in addition to that? Well, we have the durability. We have a 5 health characteristic and being able to heal every single turn. Um, we have the teleportation, so you can teleport to get into position to shoot the target that you want to, which is really, really big. Obviously, the Gossamed Archers have that too, but they can also fly 12 inches, so they're not as dependent on it. The teleport is sort of making up for that difference. Obviously, you could teleport the Gossamids instead. The Kurnoths don't have the option to fly 12 inches though. Um, they also have the specialty of being anti-hero. They have anti-hero Ren +1, and they have the ignore the guarded hero ability. And I think the Jezzails can get that, and the Long Strikes can get that. But something interesting I noticed in the FAQ, in the FAQ, they noted that and I can't show you this because my screen recording program like will not let me record 2 windows at the same time, um, which is really frustrating. I just realized I could have put it on here, but I didn't do that. But in the FAQ, they clarified that with the ignore guarded hero ability, you don't ignore the part where it says that they are -1 to be hit by shooting attacks, but that's only when it says ignore the guarded hero ability for the purposes of selecting targets. That's what the long strikes have. And then I think the Warplock Engineer can give that to the Jezzails. That's only for the purpose of selecting the target. They still get the -1 to be hit, But the Kurnoth bows, it just says ignore guarded hero. It does not say for the purposes of selecting targets. So rules as written, and I'm pretty sure this is their intent as well, the Kurnoth bows do not get the -1 to hit when they target a hero that is benefiting from guarded hero. They totally ignore it. So that's not as important, but it does make a big difference. They can target anyone they want from 18 inches away, even if it's a hero, and they're not -1 to hit against that hero, and they get +1 rend against that hero. That's pretty good. That's a really good niche. Um, it's really, really good against foot heroes. They have got a really great chance of killing a foot hero. So even if the foot hero has a 3-up save on our table, that would effectively be a 5-up save. On average, with unreinforced unit, you're expecting 5 damage, a little over 5 damage. And with a reinforced unit, you're expecting 10 damage. I don't think there are any foot heroes that have 10 health. And if they do, it's something like Go Trick or something like that, where it's like he doesn't really count. You know what I mean? Like when you say a foot hero, you're not really talking about Go Trick, right? Though technically he is a hero and he walks around. But he's got other abilities and stuff. But anyways, all that is to say, very deadly against heroes. Um, and yeah, anything with a 4-up save, they don't get a save at all. You're just going straight through the max damage, 6.22 or 12 with a reinforced unit. So that is a really big deal. So some people do swear by the Kurnoth bows in the general's regiment, getting priority target, so they get +1 to hit and +1 to wound against the enemy general's regiment. And I think even with the poor performance here on this spreadsheet that the Kurnoth bows had, I still think this anti-hero angle does make up for it. And the durability does make up for the lack of damage. So I think, yeah, it's funny because it's a pretty similar result to the, in terms of like just the overall damage, it's pretty similar to the cavalry and the bug riders that we saw. But in this case, I think what we get for the Kurnoth bows is so much better than the other shooting units that I think it makes up for it. You take into account everything, the 18-inch range, ignore guarded hero, anti-hero rend +1, the durability, the ability to teleport, the healing that they get. The high health characteristic means they're not going to get picked off as easily and weakened. Yeah, I mentioned teleport already. Oh, and they can fight. So if they ever get tied up in combat, they have 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, Ren 0, damage 1. Okay, that part's not so good, but it's still like a pretty high volume. So that it's actually kind of surprising how much damage they can do in combat, especially when they're reinforced. But the best part is they're probably still going to be stuck in combat, but you can teleport them away with Strike and Fade. That too means like they're essentially never tied up in combat unless you want them to be, or you make a really, really big mistake. So all those things taken into account, I think the Kurnoth bows are still quite good. And I do understand why people do want to reinforce them and run them in the general's regiment for sure. All right, so that's pretty much everything I wanted to go over. Yeah, just as a brief recap, when we look at the Kurnoth swords and the Kurnoth sides, they perform quite well, sort of in the middle for durability, but for damage, they did pretty well. The impact hits do a lot to help them. So sort of like those conditionals, you want the ward on in terms of durability, and you want the impact hits in terms of the damage. And that can really help them punch with the great ones, the other great elite infantry units. In terms of the cavalry, the bug riders seriously underperformed, and it seems like that means that GW thinks their strike first ability is really powerful, and I think I'd agree with them if that's what they think. Maybe I'm projecting my opinion onto them, but I think that if you're not making use of the strike first ability, you're kind of wasting the points, and you're not being as efficient as you could be. If you're going to design a list with the Spite Rider Lancers, you probably want strike first in mind to be making use of that every single turn that you can. But overall, they really underperformed. very middling in terms of durability and very low in terms of damage. Um, Although maybe, there are a lot of cavalry units now, and they do have anti-cavalry that helps a bit, but I'd still say that would bring them up to average if you're using them against other cavalry. And then finally on the shooting, that's this tab. The Gossamed archers were pretty average in terms of durability and damage, but their mobility is really powerful and makes them a great harassing unit in ways that other shooting units are just going to be left out there with their butt cheeks in the wind and just get demolished. And then the Kurnoth bows, just talked about them, but just as a recap, very durable compared to other shooting units. Damage is on the low side, but they really do make up for that with all the other things that we get just from the faction, as well as their specific ability to target and kill heroes very efficiently. So that's it for me. Those are my thoughts comparing the Sylvaneth units to other similar units in different factions. Once again, I know it's not a perfect comparison. There's things that I missed. There's abilities that I didn't take into account and can't be taken into account on these spreadsheets. But let me know what you guys think. Is there units that I'm missing here that I should have included? Am I missing some other factors that make maybe the bug riders better, or maybe make the bows and the great swords not as good? Let me know what you think about this comparison. And until next time, leafy lads and gossamed gals, I'll see you in the next one.